So when it comes to solution engineering or sales engineering or customer advocacy, right, what is it?
So it's all about this score, this game of how many happy customers, delighted customers you have.
And at some level, founders, so most of them know what they do.
Usually what happens is people confuse between an NPS and a CSAT score.
Wow. Nice. That's an interesting journey. I also had a similar journey, but I just took the route of...
I would say growth doesn't start and stop with marketing. Like what I said for customer experience, where it doesn't start and stop with the GTM team. So one thing which I learned from them is people who are near to the fire know the problem statements more than anybody else.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Unwrapping Marketing, one piece at a time. So today we have Praveen, VP of Growth and Customer Advocacy at Netcore with us. I've known Praveen for quite a while now. We just randomly met. I just pushed him, for joining Netcore, and we've been connected on LinkedIn for a while. So just happened that we went to a restaurant in Chennai that we both liked, and that's how we connected the first time. Praveen, I want you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about your journey with Freshworks and how you moved away from delivery to sales engineering, from sales engineering to customer advocacy, right? So yeah, I would love to hear from you in terms of your journey.
Okay, I think to even introduce about myself, I would say it's a usual engineering grads life story, right? So where you step into the college day one without having any clue of what you're up to, and you blissfully come out of the college on the last day still having no clue of what you're up to. So that's how the engineering was for me. But I think the stars were aligned the right direction where I got placed in TCS. I spent a good chunk of my time with TCS where I was part of almost all the challenging projects and teams, I would say. And the best part is I was part of their cloud online assessment wing, right? Where it was called as TCS Ion. I was part of that. So it's very challenging. Things were going in the right direction because I was heading solution engineering, pre-sales, as well as a little bit of customer engagement at that time, because these things had never had a fancy term back in 2011-12. And then there is a calling which usually happens for people, right? So for me, it happened in the end of the 9th year for me from TCS, where it was like, oh, what am I doing? Should I try something new? That's when Freshdesk happened. Freshdesk, at that time it was called as Freshdesk. 2016, I joined Freshdesk, and there was no looking back at all for almost 7 years with Freshworks. So I was part of their rebranding journey. I was part of their the IPO run which we had, as well as the growth, right? We were growing in multiples and had the best time of my life, I would say, because I was working with a few of the very, very sharp minds in the industry who were at Freshworks at that time. So started with solution engineering / pre-sales, because in different regions, different organizations is being called in different terms altogether. So, and then I took sales enablement for a while. So the crux remained the same for me, right? It's all about keeping the customers happy. I took a detour of doing an entrepreneurial journey for almost a year and a half, and then landed with Netcore, which is an amazing company, been there for almost a year now. It's a 26-year-old company. They have been market leaders when it comes to MarTech solutions. So there's no looking back again. Netcore has been there with me for almost 12 months now. And the best part about that is I head the customer advocacy team and the growth team with Netcore.
Wow, nice. That's an interesting journey. I also had a similar journey, but I just took the route of business development. I joined Hexaware, and then I took that business development route, and then marketing. And I also have done a little bit of pre-sales myself. Yeah, and proposals, mostly proposals, right? So pre-sales those days were mostly proposals. You have a separate team which takes care of getting things done from like multiple team members. No, you have a like generally in IT company you have a testing team. You have you have multiple teams, right? So I did a little bit of proposals, but I'm not a document or a process person. I never enjoyed that. But I've been always a marketer, so I just came back to marketing. So what is to dive a little bit more, right? And most of the most of the guests that I had on the podcast, right, they were marketers and at some level founders. So most of them know what they do. So when it comes to solution engineering or sales engineering or customer advocacy, right, what is it? What is it? What is customer advocacy?
Okay, I would say, see, customer advocacy is if you ask me, it's the buzzword, and it's going to stay here for long, if you ask me, right? So where does it start? It starts from a customer experience team. If you have a team which is called as a customer experience team, my immediate suggestion would be, because I've been mentoring a lot of startups nowadays, my immediate suggestion, the first suggestion to them would be change the name of the team. Because when you're going to call them as a customer experience team, you, as a company, giving away 50% of the chances of winning this customer. I'll tell you why. The experience might go on a good side or a bad side, right? So, but when you're going to call this team as a customer delight team or a customer advocacy team, there is a whole lot of things it opens up for you, right? Because here now what happens is the customer comes in the center. Then comes your product, then comes things which are feeder teams, if you ask me. So the customer will always stay at the center. And that's exactly what a customer advocacy team does, right? If you ask me in a layman's term, I would say if a customer is happy with the solutioning, what you've done, with the product, what you've given, the consultation, what you've done, then the customer would be ready to talk good things about you to the entire world. If there is going to be a miss, then the customer is frustrated. It's as simple as that. So it's all about this score, this game of how many happy customers, delighted customers you have who are ready to talk about you to the entire world.
Got it.
Right? So that's customer advocacy, which is people would start advocating about this product while there are suggestions being asked, right? So if you just ask me, like this is a usual thing, right? When you're new to a place, let's say you're going from here to Paris and you don't know about anything about Paris, and that's when you call your friend who is in Paris or somebody who has gone to Paris and you're going to ask them, okay, tell me a good restaurant where I can go and eat some good food, right? The first restaurant name which comes from these people's mouth, that's because they have done the restaurants have done the customer advocacy well. It's as simple as that, right? Else you will not recommend a hotel if the person who is calling me, you're going to term them as an enemy. Maybe then there's a different story altogether, which I'm not going to touch. But if he's your true friend, then you will always suggest a very good hotel for them, and that would happen only if your experience with that hotel is good. In crux, that's customer advocacy. It's about how many customers, how many users recommend you to other people. So that's customer advocacy.
Got it. And how do you measure this? How do you measure that? Do you measure? There's a typical NPS, right? So NPS is how everybody measures, customer happiness or customer success, right? But especially when it comes to customer advocacy, right? So how do you measure this? Like, because any marketing source or any source, right? So you exactly know, the source of where the lead is coming from, or how the lead is getting converted, all of that, right? So once they become a customer, then how do you kind of measure and how do you make sure that they are referring you to some folks, right? So what is the kind of measurement? How do you track that?
Before even tracking this, right, maybe I'll take 2 steps backward. I will tell you why should we measure and why should we have a customer advocacy team as such, right? See, you've been in this industry for like almost 2 decades. I've been here for almost 1.5 decades. Now, I can tell you this. We are all seeing products left, right, center, which are playing a Me Too game. There are only very few products which are creating categories. All the other products, it's a Me Too market where you have it, I have it, and that's all about it, right? So if you are going to get into that game, anybody for that matter, any organization would not have much of a leeway to play around when it comes to a product, because you would have the best of the features being rolled out, but it's hardly months before your competitor catches it and they develop the same thing. Or they might outpass you with a set of features, right? So this catching up game would never end when it comes to features. So that's taken into consideration because that's a Me Too game what you're playing. If that is gone, so you will never be able to differentiate much with your product, then the only leeway available for you would be people. It's about how do you create that experience for your customers. That's where customer advocacy plays a very important role, because you will maybe I will cover about this in the later part of a discussion as well. This is a very important term which is going to become a buzzword going forward. It's called as emotional investment, right? So if a customer has to be emotionally invested in your product, then it's up to you. It's your game. You got to make them invested emotionally with you. So there are multiple things which you got to do so that they invest emotionally with you. Because if they're going to invest on time and money, now it's very easy. But what's tough is to make them invest emotionally with you, right? Now coming to your question on how can I even measure this? Customer advocacy, though people call this as a very qualitative job, I would say even a qualitative job should have a number behind it, right? You rightly mentioned NPS, which we all know that is going to be one number which you need to measure, right? Where you know whether these customers are going to promote you or not. But that's on the 30,000 feet. While you are into, let's say, a 0 to 1, 1 to 5, or a 5 to 10 journey, then the number of, let's say, metrics which you're going to measure will differ. And I would say you got to have at least a set of 5 metrics ready with you, right? So one is NPS. Second is your customer satisfaction score. Usually what happens is people confuse between an NPS and a CSAT score. CSAT and an NPS is completely different. CSAT is usually transactional. Let's say if I have a problem, I'm going to raise it to you and you're going to solve me that problem. I'm going to rate you based on this conversation, what you're going to have today. That's CSAT. NPS is for the entire year or for that 6 months, the effort what we both have put together. I tell you whether I will promote you or not. So these are 2 things which is basic. Then a very important thing which a lot of companies are now starting to focus would be adoption score, which is your product adoption score. Customer would become happy, would become delighted, would be, like, let's say, emotionally investing with you only if they adopt your product. We both have been using, and people who have been listening to this will be using MS Office, right? Would have at least used MS Office once in their life, right? People who call themselves as experts in MS Office, right? I can write down and give it to you. They would have barely scratched the first part of. So the third very important metrics, which I think most of the companies have started using it nowadays, is the adoption score, right? Why adoption score is more important? Because once a customer starts using the fullest of your product, they're not going to leave you if they see value. So for that, you got to start tracking your adoption score as well. You want to understand how much percentage of your entire product the customer has been using. And this plays a very important role when it comes to customer advocacy. Let me give you an example, right? We have been using MS Office day in and day out. People who have been hearing this might use it at least once in their lifetime, right? But I can tell you this, people who can term themselves as experts in MS Office would have barely scratched the surface of MS Office. There is so much more in MS Office which we wouldn't have even tried. Adoption is to make people understand that there is so much value more in the product and start using it. So that's a very important metric, if you ask me, going forward, which should be tracked for customer advocacy or customer delight. Then it's all about number of advocates whom you have, how many referenceable customers you have. Quarter on quarter, this has to increase. It's a very simple exercise. Ask your customer success teams, ask your customer advocacy teams to go and talk to your customers and see if you can increase this bucket of customer advocates whom you have quarter on quarter so that you are comfortable when it comes to referenceability. And the fifth very important point, which most of the companies have not started using, which they should start using, would be community engagement, right? You got to create a community for your own product. And the best part about that is it's free marketing, if you ask me. When a customer, when let's say a potential who is trying your product has a problem and it has been solved by a customer who's been using that product, what else is free marketing, right? A customer coming and talking about you, a customer coming and saying that, you know what, I've been using this product for more than 12 months now and it's been amazing. That's community. So you got to create that very strong community where people can start discussing, make it little more engaging. And it's just not about the product. They start discussing about their, let's say, common challenges, what they face. This way, you have a very, very healthy community being formed, which is going to help you sell better and which will also help you market better because customers are going to talk about you. So the 5 things I would say, which is going to help you measure customer advocacy or delight would be NPS, CSAT, adoption score, number of advocates whom you have, and finally the community engagement.
Community, nice. So where does it start? You basically, when we talked for the first time, right? You mentioned that customer experience doesn't start after you sign a customer, right, or after you sign a contract, right? It probably starts much before. So you have any suggestions in terms of see the typical measurement which you mentioned is typically NPS or CSAT, right? So after they've signed a contract, after they become a customer, so did you basically in it's PLG or if it's enterprise sales led, whatever it is, right? So you onboard them, you do a lot of customization and stuff. So when does actually customer advocacy starts, and when you should be thinking about customer advocacy in the first place? Is it the first customer or a prospect interaction, or is it after onboarding a customer?
Customer advocacy, I would say it starts after you onboard your customer. Once they believe in you, once they have signed the contract, once they have paid you, I think that's where your customer advocacy journey starts. It starts from onboarding and it goes till offboarding. Right? So customer advocacy, people think that it doesn't work when your customer gets offboarded. But if you ask me, you have the equal responsibility of letting go customers happily also. Because the one thing which this is something which Kalpit, who is my current CEO, says, right? When there are churn happening, when there are customers leaving you, you got to make them happy as well. And I'll tell you why, right? Because they are giving you loads of opportunities for you to improve, which none of the other customers would have given you when they are going to be staying with you, right? So opportunities for improvement comes from customers who leave you. And you got to have good relationship with them as well. You might not know your roads might cross any day, and they might come back to you after using a couple of other tools. They might still come back. We have so many use cases. We have so many success stories where customers go try a competitor, they come back to us as well. And that's because our offboarding was more effective, and the offboarding was, if you ask me, it's not that tiring. Right? It has not been that tough for people. We don't have hard conversations. We don't push people. So that makes it little good for customers, and they come back to us again.
Make it easy. You're saying make it easy for customers if they want to leave you. Understand and try to, of course, you try to retain them, right? And if not, there are multiple reasons why you let a customer go, and then they probably want to try other tools and come back to you, right? So and I think I'm also a strong believer that whenever I used to fret over customer leaving me, right? And then I realized that some of it is in your control, a lot of it is not in your control, right? Because there are other factors. There are other use cases, and basically, if somebody is using Netcore, then they probably want to use multiple features that they want from a single product, or they probably are consolidating. There could be multiple reasons, right? Really, right? Nice.
And the best part is you got to make it amicable for people to leave you, so that they have that good thoughts about you, even if they go to another competitor. So you linger in their mind even after they are starting to use your competitor, and they they get back to you if there is frustrations there. So for if you want me to explain, customer advocacy starts from onboarding and it goes to offboarding. But customer experience as such starts from the first click what they do in your product.
Right, got it.
Usually what people think is customer experience and customer delight is always a GTM's responsibility, is what people think. It is never just the GTM's responsibility. It's an entire organization's responsibility. That's when you got to give them good experience by your product, by your process, by your people. 3 Ps. So the first click, what a customer does, they start evaluating your experience. So it's just not people, it's also product equally. So your customer experience starts from the first click to the last click. And customer advocacy starts from onboarding to offboarding.
Got it. And your team takes care of, is it both customer experience and advocacy or just advocacy?
We are now focusing more on customer experience as well as advocacy.
Got it. Okay. So what is growth for you? And you also take care of growth, right? What is, in general, growth means, part of marketing, right? You do a bunch of campaigns. At some level, growth also means that, you work on, a lot of experiments and, people who are working on experiments, a lot of marketing experiments, they are called as growth marketers. So what is growth in Netcore and what is growth for you?
So I would say both has the same answer, and that's exactly why I'm with Netcore. I would say growth doesn't start and stop with marketing. Like what I said for customer experience, where it doesn't start and stop with the GTM team. Growth usually doesn't start and stop with marketing. But people think that it's a marketing responsibility. No. It's a big no. At least going forward, it is definitely not a marketing responsibility. It's an entire organization's responsibility. You see, the best example is we did something called as Growth Olympics a month before with Netcore. And one fine day, Kalpit and Rajesh, who was our MD, both of them called me to their room and they said, you know what, let's run Growth Olympics. The name was kept by them. And they were like, okay, tell me what it is. They told me, okay, let's gamify ideas. Let's invite ideas from the entire organization. From a HR team to the collections team to the finance team, let's open it for all. Let them all give us ideas on how to grow. Right? And you won't believe me, the best of the ideas were from almost the junior most people in the organization. Because there is so much of gold mine with them. Because they are near to the fire. They have seen customers day in and day out. Right? And when I pitched this idea to a lot of people before I ran Growth Olympics with Netcore, people asked me, like, why do you want to do this risk of involving everybody into a growth initiative, right? Isn't that not a pressure? I would say it's not a pressure, it's a privilege. When an organization opens and says, you know what, and we had prize monies for the first 5 good ideas, right? That's how serious we were when it comes to inviting ideas from anybody and everybody from Netcore. And I asked the same question to Rajesh as well. I asked, meaning our MT, I asked him, like, why this? Why the entire organization? The very simple sentence, the very simple phrase which he gave, which was more of a boost to me to run the entire initiative, was, at Netcore, growth is everybody's business. Right? So for me, and for Netcore, growth is everybody's business. And so everybody has some share. If you ask me to, let's say, contribute for the growth initiatives of a company, that is one. Second, very important thing, growth is just not about how many new customers you are acquiring. It's also about how many old customers are there still in the system. How many customers you have retained successfully? How many customers have grown in the past 1.5, 2 years with you? That's when the net NRR comes in, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the MRR; it's also the NRR, right? So NRR comes in, and that's very, very important, because that tells you how many customers are happy and they're sticky with you. Whatever we discussed till now, right, for almost 25, 30 minutes, it all sums up to that one number, which is NRR.
Correct.
Because this tells you whether they have good NPS, with this tells you whether they are sticky with you, their product adoption is great. It tells you whole bunch of stories about a customer and an organization. So growth, if you ask me, it's just not acquisition, it's also about retention, mostly into retention nowadays, because cost of acquiring a customer is too costly. At the same time, growth can be in the multiples of 2 or 3 at least when it comes to retention. And involve, if you got to ask me one suggestion, I would say involve every single person in an organization on your growth discussions so that you get ideas. Because you never know, right? Your next set of good ideas for growth might be from somebody who is actually coding sitting in one corner of your organization.
Got it. So you mentioned about Growth Olympics, right? So what was your biggest learning? You said juniors gave the maximum, growth ideas, right? So can you give me an example of like what did you come up with? Maybe if that's like what kind of an ideas? Then what did you learn from them, right? So you said they came up with ideas. So what did you learn from them?
So one thing which I learned from them is people who are near to the fire know the problem statements more than anybody else.
Right.
So if you ask me, if you want to understand the product, the problem, right, you got to go and talk to people who are near to the fire. And when you're going to make this competitive, when you're going to gamify this, that's when, and you're going to make it cross-functional. You're going to not say that pre-sales, we are giving you a chance to mingle with other pre-sales and come up with one team. No. We have told them clearly that they can go cross-functional as well. The best of the ideas came from a good mix of GTM, product, and engineering folks. Because this is a deadly combination, if you ask me. GTM knows what the problem is. Engineering knows how to solve the problem. And the product knows how to envision it and how to design it. Right? So most of our good ideas were from this combination of GTM plus product plus engineering. Right? So I would say the good learning what we have got is keep all ears open for ideas from the ground, from anybody and everybody in an organization. Right?
Nice.
Second, it's about the correct mix. So what you got to advise people is advise people and encourage cross-functional collaboration. Because that helps you in a different ball game altogether, if you ask me, right? Because I was hearing to one of the interviews from Sachin Tendulkar like 2-3 days back, where when he was, I don't know which tour it is, but when one of the tours where he was in Chennai, and this became viral also. One of the tours where he was in Chennai, he had a bad day. He came back and he was actually thinking on how to make it better. And that's when he ordered tea or coffee, which came in. And the bearer who bought the tea or coffee said that, you know what, I think your bat's length is little more. And it's also because your arm pad, what you're wearing, is disturbing you from playing that straight shots, which nobody would have even explained Sachin. Even Sachin didn't know about this, right? And when he tried to change that arm pad as well as the bat's length or the weight, it actually helped him to score more runs compared to the previous day. And this idea came from somebody who is an ardent fan. Not nobody else. It was just an ardent fan from Chennai. And he was actually searching for that ardent fan from Chennai as well. So that became viral. So growth ideas, growth Olympics for me, the learning is you would have those fans about your organization inside your organization itself. Right? Identify those fans and they will tell you how to grow.
Nice. So there's a fundamentally, in advocacy, right, you have multiple, you probably have to manage multiple teams, right? And traditionally, the only sales and marketing have functioned in silos, right? Now I see a lot of enterprise customers or, a lot of customers, right? There is this, in the entire sales cycle, there is a solutioning team, there's a pre-sales team, right? And then, if it's an enterprise customer, then it goes to the engineering and the product for customization, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes to CS, right? And the CS is CS does their own thing. There is customer support, right? So there are multiple, teams, right? And sales, of course, especially when it is onboarding an enterprise customer, sales always promises a lot, right? And then that goes to solution, and then they'll have to do it because they'll have to sign a contract, and then it goes to engineering effort, and then everything is like, the things that you predicted is like 1 month, you'll probably take about 6 months to deliver, right? So now, how do you solve this problem? The typical problem of, even at some level, like I said, marketing generating leads and sales following up with their own leads, right? These are traditional problems which I don't want to talk about. But having said that, a lot of enterprise customers, right now, your average deal value ranges between $50,000 to $200,000, $300,000. Like on an average, even goes up to $500,000 or $1 million, right? And since you're working on advocacy, and you probably have to take care of all of these things, right? The promises that sales is making, if solution is able to envision that, and then, or are they actually predicting the right amount of effort where engineering will be able to deliver? So how do you kind of manage all of this in your effort of making sure that the customer is happy?
So there are two answers to this. One is about the internal answer, the internal thing, what you got to do. And second, it's about the external thing, which is with your customer. First, let me answer the internal thing, right? The very simple formula for this, which we have been, let's say, doing really well when it comes to Netcore, is that I call this as GPS. What does a GPS do? It tells you, like if there is a destination, it tells you how quickly you can go. It also tells you the best route, right? And it saves a lot of things for you. It saves cost, it saves time, it saves a bunch of things when you're going to use a GPS. Every organization should have a GPS, right? Here, the GPS is very simple. It's one goal, one platform, and one story. Right? One goal is about the entire organization should start shooting for that one goal, which is your North Star metrics. You can have multiple sub goals which every team would start owning up, but there can be just one goal. If that goal is going to be like 40% growth in 2 years down the lane, that's goal. That's the only goal. If it's about hitting $400 million by 2027, that's a goal. Right? I would say that one goal should transform, should percolate to the entire organization. Everybody should start shooting for that one goal. So you're going to have multiple goals. People lose that synergy. That collaboration is what gets missed, right? And everybody wants to, let's say now it's appraisal time as well. Everybody wants to perform for their own KRA KPIs. And they forget the larger goal of the organization where it has to go. So if you're going to trickle and that is not anybody's problem, Fiyoza. It is not a problem of the individual contributors who are working in the team. It's just that as leaders, we got to percolate that one number to everybody. If they know the importance, people will start working. I've seen this in a lot of organizations. So make that one goal very strong and with full conviction, go and talk to the entire team about that one goal. Right? Second is one platform. Usually what happens is because you don't have an integrated technology platform, there is no one source of truth. So everybody has their own set of tools which they use, and because of which, if you're going to pull one story, you will not be able to see that one story. Right? Everything will have a different story altogether. So for improving that, you got to have that one platform approach where from a customer's first click to the last click, you will be able to track them from marketing to exit. Right? And I would say, I would call this as a drag force, because for a marketing, it doesn't get over with SQLs. Right? The drag force would be, you got to see if this customer is getting converted also. For a sales, it will not be just number of POs getting signed. The drag force element would be, are they getting onboarded within 30 days? For a onboarding, it will not be number of customers who are getting onboarded. it will be like, have I done that consultation to that customer so that they have started seeing value about the product within the first 30 days itself? For a customer success, it will not just be, so these are drag force elements, right? So they would have their own KRA KPI, but they have to give importance for the drag force as well, elements as well, which is for a CSM, it would be like, can I own the retention and can I own churn, which is product reasons as well. And across all these drag force element, you will have horizontals, which is your product and engineering and your customer support. All right. So if you're going to design this metrics and see, this will give you clarity on how this one platform approach can come in. Last is one story. One story can happen only if there is cross-functional synergy. If your marketing doesn't know what your sales is selling, if your sales doesn't know the pain points of your onboarding, if your onboarding doesn't know how tough it is to do in-depth discovery, which a pre-sales does, right? Then there is going to be like so much of chaos inside. So cross-functional synergy, like bringing everybody into the same table and making them talk and solve their problems so that everybody starts selling the same story, will help us to achieve what we want to. Here, when I'm going to start talking about one story from HR, who's going to get you the best of the talents, to the sales, who's going to, like, let's say, pitch the same product, to the finance, who's going to collect the accounts, everybody should know what that one story is about the company.
Got it.
That's when it's going to get interesting. So for me, it's very easy. It's just that you got to implement this and execute it. So GPS will work for any organization. It's one goal, one platform, and one story.
Got it. And was it your responsibility, or before you joined, you had this process set up with either the MD or the CEO? Whose responsibility is this?
This is, if you ask me, this is everybody's responsibility. But if somebody has to own it, it will be customer advocacy team, which will also own. And it is just not customer advocacy. I would not put that on my entire team, because I'm sure my team would also listen to this. So I don't want to put that pressure entirely on them. So that's exactly why we have something called as special projects in Netcore, right? Where all the strategic initiatives get brainstormed. And while it comes to execution, then we give it to different teams to execute it. So the special projects team should take care of this.
Got it. Okay. Nice.
Thank you for watching, guys. Please subscribe to Revv Growth and stay tuned for the next part of the episode. Thanks again for watching.